Chapter 20, Dr. Jacob.
By the early 1990s, things were going well in my life. My family and I had just moved into a brand new house that we had built in the suburbs. Overall, it was a nice community. All of my children were attending the local public schools. As we settled into the predominantly white suburb, I soon learned that one member of my household was being bullied by kids at school for being the product of an Indian father and a white Caucasian mother. This made me furious, so I decided to talk to one of my child's teachers, Mr. Westicle. His name reminded me of when Homer Simpson named his son Bart because it was the only name he could think of that did not rhyme with anything that the other kids could make fun of. I arrived at Mr. Westicle's classroom one afternoon. "Excuse me, Mr. Westicle," I said. "Can I speak to you for a moment?" "No," he said, very sternly. "It's 11:30 a.m. and I'm taking an early lunch break today. I'm on my lunch hour and you'll have to wait." I thought it was terrible that a teacher would outright refuse to meet with a concerned parent. This nasty response from Mr. Westicle made me mad. Therefore, I went to see the principal. Fortunately, the principal was willing to talk to me since it was not at his lunch break. In my conversation with the principal, he said something to imply that my child is the one at fault. What a crock! I was losing confidence in this school system by the minute. That night, I got upset thinking about what had happened. "I don't know what to do," I told my wife. "I do," said my wife. "You need to see a psychiatrist." "Wait a minute. Where did that come from? What are you talking about? That's about our children, not about me. I don't have a problem here." "I know a psychiatrist," said my wife. Obviously, she ignored everything I just said. "Now, why do you know a psychiatrist?" I asked. "Because I'm a nurse. I work with all kinds of doctors at the hospital." After arguing about not wanting to see a psychiatrist, I reluctantly gave in and agreed to do so. My wife then made the appointment with Dr. Jacob, the psychiatrist. He wanted to see all of us, meaning the whole family, my wife, our 3 kids, and me. So there I was. For the first time ever in my life, I was waiting to see a damn psychiatrist. As we were sitting in his waiting room, I wondered why they are called shrinks. Aren't they supposed to expand the brain with knowledge instead of shrinking it? The door opened, and out walked Dr. Jacob. He was short, skinny, and well-dressed. He walked out of his office with a young woman with her head down, crying and wiping tears from her face using tissues. After the tearful woman left, Dr. Jacob turned his attention to us. He said hi to the kids first. This annoyed me because I was the one paying the bill. "I want to see each one of you separately," he told us, with a big friendly smile. With that, he met with each of our 3 kids. He appeared to be taking his time. I figured this must be some kind of a gimmick to run up his $250 per hour meter. I could not help wonder what the kids were telling him about me. Then my wife went in to meet with Dr. Jacob. It seemed like she was in there forever. I was willing to bet that she was just telling him about every major and minor thing that I ever said to her that annoyed her, which was probably every word I ever spoke to her. I just knew that after speaking with her, the shrink would be wound up and ready to unload the crap on me. My wife came out of his office and said, "He wants you to join me in our session." "What the heck did you tell him? Wasn't he going to have a private session with me just as he had private session with everyone else?" I was annoyed. Regardless, I went into his office and joined the conversation with him and my wife. "Okay, I have talked to everyone," said Dr. Jacob. "Wait a minute," I interrupted. "You have not talked to me." "I don't need to. I know exactly what the problem is. The problem is you." "What?" That made me angry. He continued, "You have put your child in the wrong school environment. Your child is too bright and cannot succeed in the environment that he is in. As a matter of fact, all of your children are extremely bright." At this point, I'm convinced that Dr. Jacob is just trying to suck up to me. I thought he was complimenting my kids because he knows I'm his client and he wants me to come back and start a new revenue stream for himself. Dr. Jacob continued speaking. "There is a private school here in town that I highly regard. I recommend putting your child in this school because it is far more appropriate learning environment." "Private schools are costly, a lot of money," I said. "How much does this particular school cost?" "Somewhere around $10,000 per year." I gasped. "I cannot do that. If I send one kid to a private school, then I need to send all three of them. I do not have that kind of money. This will cost too much." Dr. Jacob smiled. "Sudhir, let me ask you an important question." He called me Sudhir because my wife and people who are close to me call me by my real name. Hence, most people call me Sid. Dr. Jacob continued, "Are children your assets or are they liabilities?" "I consider them my assets." I said that like a parrot. "If you consider your children as liabilities, paying for the education is a cost. However, if you consider them as asset, it is investment in assets. Either way, pay now or pay later. You have the problem, so you know what to do." I did not like what Dr. Jacob was telling me. I grumbled and we went home. As time went on, I thought more and more about what Dr. Jacob said. What if he's right and God forbid I am wrong? Then what was the point of going to an expert and pay him all his money and then not follow his advice? That's plain foolish. Moreover, I could see his point. Of all people, I understood the importance of getting good education. I'm the one who traveled halfway across the world in pursuit of an enhanced education that would polish my potential. I also remembered how important it was to my father that his children become well educated and properly trained in their career fields. Like my dad, I desired a superior education for my own children. Clearly, the school system in our area was lacking. I eventually realized that I would need to make the investment that Dr. Jacob talked about. As a result, all three of my children eventually attended the private school that Dr. Jacob recommended. Still, a major issue in all this was paying the money required for my children to attend the private school. Fortunately, I had planned wisely. Remember Tyrone Robinson? He was the person I told you about earlier who refused Ross Perot's stock grant? Well, I accepted my share of stock grant and kept it. That money ended up paying for all three of my children's schooling at that private school. All three of them also went on to graduate from University of Michigan and then pursued their graduate schools at their own expense. My wife and I are now parents of a doctor, a nurse practitioner, and a lawyer. Dr. Jacob taught a valuable lesson about the role of parents in a child's education. While your children are responsible for their own success, parents and teachers are responsible for creating the environment for them to succeed. Creating that environment involves personal sacrifices of the parents. I continued to see Dr. Jacob, and I enjoyed talking to him about many different topics over the years. When you're having trouble knowing what to do, there is no shame in seeking help from trained professionals. By the way, if you have children under age of 18, ask yourself, are they assets or liabilities? Aha! So what have we learned? 1. While it is the responsibility of children to succeed, parents and teachers are responsible for creating the environment for them to succeed. 2. When you are in times of trouble, get help from professionals.